Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the TechOps Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Saavedra, the founder of MergerData.com. And today we're going to be going over what a modern CRM is and why you should be using it in your business. Now, if you're in the manufacturing industry, there's a good chance that you don't really care too much about the modern transformations of CRMs. You have your spreadsheets or you have your CRMs that you've been using for many years, and they do a good enough job, so why look for something else? But the reality is that modern CRMs have changed so much over the past few years that it's really worth taking another look at what you're using and how you're using it. Now, a modern day CRM is in reality more of a platform, and it bridges across everything from marketing to the sales team and partially the data analytics sphere as well. So in this episode, we're going to dive into more details on how the CRM has changed over the past few years, how it can fit into a modern manufacturing business, and how it can really result in so many more efficiencies and easier ways of working that you'll probably fall in love with the tool and make it a critical part of your tech stack and operations. Now, if you haven't listened to the podcast before, basically what I do is I dive into the topic of technology in the context of the rest of the operations in your business. So often we like to talk about data, about software in this own little bubble, but in reality, it fits into so many other parts of your operations, and you have to consider the entire system as a whole rather than just zooming in and looking at one portion. So what I like to do is I like to dive into a specific tech topic, but then try to zoom out and understand how it fits into everything else and how you can take that perspective back to your business and back to your operations to make it a better experience for you, for your employees, and for your customers. So this is episode 7 of the TechOps Podcast. Let's jump in. Hey everyone, Dan here again. If you are a manufacturing company that is fed up with not being able to see your numbers day to day in your operations, if you are tired of all of these IT systems that don't talk to each other and are difficult to use, then we have the solution for you. Check out our tech stack audit where we'll lay out all of your data and all of your systems in a way that's easy to understand for you so that you can identify the opportunities for improvement, of eliminating tools you're not using, of taking advantage of features that you already pay for, and just making your operations smoother every single day. Go to the mergerdata.com website and click on Tech Stack Audit to get started. All right, let's get back to the episode. When you're thinking of a CRM, you're probably thinking of a sales-oriented tool, something that just helps you track and update what prospects are doing, what clients are doing, what they want to order. You probably get feelings of dread and of immense amounts of stress just because someone's pushed you in the past to fill out your CRM, fill out your CRM, fill out your CRM, make sure that everything is up to date. And it really just brings back bad memories of people hounding you to do something that you don't want to do. Usually people have their own ways of tracking things. There's external spreadsheets outside of any cloud CRM that you've been using, or you're still just in spreadsheets and that's your main CRM for your company and for your role. Now, CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. And I'd say about 10 years ago, this acronym wasn't as accurate as it is now because of all the new feature sets that have been introduced to CRM platforms like Salesforce, like HubSpot, like Zoho. Now, you're not just talking about the sales-focused portion of a customer journey and a customer experience. You're also talking about integrations with all the other tools of your businesses. You're talking about mobile apps that you can use on the go. You're talking about automation where you're not having to update as many fields, and analytics that's telling you everything about a customer's journey from beginning to end, integrated from ad platforms all the way to the orders that they're placing and that you're sending out via whatever system you're using in your business, whether it's an ERP or an MES or anything else. And so a modern CRM is truly an end-to-end platform for the acronym that it stands for. If I was to sum up the difference between older CRMs from 5 to 10 years ago and modern CRMs that exist today, is that number one, it can make your marketing and sales team look like it's a much bigger headcount than it actually is. I'm talking about with 1 to 3 people, you'll be able to seem like you're a 5, 10, 15 person team because of all the automation that you have interacting with your customers, knowing exactly where they're at in their customer journey, because you have these easy to access data points each step along the way. And so you're no longer passing people off multiple times and having information collected multiple times from the different marketing and salespeople in your organization. Instead, the right people can help at the right time. They know exactly the status of the customer, and that's pretty much it. Next, modern CRMs help the sales team sell easier. Because of the extra information that you're collecting through the platform and the way that it's presented to your sales team, they feel like they're coming into calls with much more information and they're able to sell directly and more personably to their prospect. So they don't feel like they have to come in and requalify if you've set things up correctly. They don't feel like they have to come in and start from scratch, basically. So they can ask much more pointed questions. They can focus more time on building a relationship with the customer, with the prospect, instead of having to start everything from scratch. Next, modern CRMs give you analytics that easily answer the questions that you have. Because these platforms are integrated with other tools, you're having much more data flow through the CRM and you're able to get these answers and reports much quicker than before. So instead of having to go through multiple platforms and bring in data into a central place, instead, with your integrations, you can build these reports in HubSpot, in Salesforce, using everything that's fed into the system. So the platform is becoming much more end-to-end compared to before. It's not this segmented island where marketing and sales uses it. Now you can bridge the gap between all the other organizations in your business. Okay, so now that we dug into what a modern CRM is, you're probably wondering, why in the heck should you care? Why would you want to use a modern CRM? Why would you want to pay for the subscription costs that come along with one of those? And there are usually a few trigger points that I look for to determine whether or not someone should care about looking at a modern CRM and moving on from what they're currently doing. Number one would be seeing if leads are dropping between marketing and sales. Now, a lot of organizations don't even look at this, and so they might not even know that this is happening. But the number of times that people submit forms on websites or schedule a meeting and basically no one shows up to it, no one answers it, the sales team has no idea that it exists, it happens much more frequently than you would expect, especially in the manufacturing industry. I see this more frequently for whatever reason than in other industries that I've worked in the past. Next is that messaging isn't being cadenced or isn't being targeted specifically to where the customer is at in the journey. So think about if you're sending automated emails from one of your systems to a prospect, it basically doesn't match where they're at in the customer journey. So it might be an automated email asking to schedule a call, a discovery call with a salesperson, but in reality, they've already gone through that process and have already talked to a salesperson. This shouldn't happen if you're using a modern CRM, because all of that, it will be automatically updated and that person won't be targeted with the wrong automated email. So that's a second trigger point that I usually look for, is that the wrong messaging is being sent at the wrong time. Next is more of a marketing focused trigger, and that's that you can't figure out your ROI on marketing activities because you don't have the data or reports that show you where people came from and where they ended up. And so what I mean by that is that you can't look and see, this is the number of customers that we closed based off of where they came from, whether it was a Facebook ad, whether it was LinkedIn, whether it was a billboard or something like that. And while modern CRMs can't capture all of that data, right, because sometimes frequently things happen outside of the context of a device that is trackable, you can still capture information on lead forms or meeting requests that ask people where they initially heard about your brand, and then that data is in the CRM. So that's another trigger point I look for. If I ask, hey, what's your ROAS, your return on ad spend? What's your number one channel that you're generating the most new customers and new pipeline from? If people can't answer that question, there's a good chance that the CRM that they're using or the method that they're using as a CRM is not living up to what it should. And last but not least, the other trigger that I look for to see if it makes sense to have a modern CRM in your business is if there's a lot of copying and pasting between different systems and a lot of sharing of spreadsheets. If people are having to copy and paste from one system to another and having to send an email with a new updated spreadsheet to one of their colleagues, that's a good sign that you're not using a modern CRM or you're not using it in the correct manner. And so that's another reason why you would want to use a modern CRM, is to avoid all this manual office work that is completely unnecessary for today's day and age. So now that leads us back to why you would want to use a modern CRM when you see these triggers. That's because it makes your job easier, whether you're a salesperson or whether you're an executive trying to get more information on how marketing and sales efforts are leading to actual revenue. Having a modern CRM makes everyone's life easier from end to end. Now, obviously there's overhead when it comes to hiring developers or getting someone to configure the CRM, but this is unavoidable in today's environment. You need software developers to run a business. You need an IT department or at least IT support. And so you might as well take advantage of all the great tools that are out there to make the rest of your team's life easier. Usually what ends up happening is if you don't have a person specifically develop a modern CRM to make your other employees' lives easier, then one of your employees is going to pick up that work and end up being like a shadow IT person or a shadow developer, where it's not in their job description, but they're the mastermind behind everything that the sales and marketing team is using. And so as an executive, you never want to see your organization depending on someone who isn't documenting what they're doing and it's not their specialty of skill sets, because it ends up suffering from many, many problems in terms of scalability, in terms of being able to pass it on to someone if that person leaves, all those types of things that you just want to avoid. And so it's worth the investment in a modern CRM to make everyone's lives easier, and then also have the correct delegation to a CRM specialist who can work on the platform specifically. And let's be honest, your employees and yourself both deserve to have a modern tool that allows you to hit your goals and hit your targets, and not have you struggling the entire time with admin work that's not relevant to what you're trying to do. Why should your sales team have to deal with updating spreadsheets or systems for 25 hours out of the week when they could be prospecting, when they could be spending time with existing customers, tons of other things that they could be doing to increase your revenue, and filling out data and tweaking spreadsheets is not one of them. And so you owe your business, you owe your team a modern tool that lets them do their job and lets your business thrive in a way that it should be doing. Now, I know in the manufacturing industry, there's all these initiatives right now and all these topics that you get bombarded with in terms of digital transformation, all these awesome new software tools that your business just absolutely needs to implement or else it's going to fall behind. And while there's lots of change happening, it's important to get the fundamentals down in terms of the most core systems of a business and how it relates to the rest of your operations. And so when we're going back to the framework of TechOps, where we're aligning technology and making it an enabler for your people, your processes, your strategy, and the goals of your business, CRMs are a major focus of that. ERPs that we talked about in the last episode are another major system focus of integrating all of your technology together and making it easy for your employees to work. And I can promise you that CRMs are worth the effort of thought, of investment, of time because of all the downstream effects that it has on the business. Now, for my own agency, there was a time when we were doing scattered, unmeasurable campaigns, resisting the investment into a modern CRM and all the features that come with it. But what we ended up finding out was that it was limiting everything else in the business because we were refusing to upgrade and invest in one of our core systems. Uh, Especially when you're on the technical side of things, it can be a little bit challenging to get out of that uh, mindset and think more in terms of the marketing and sales side of things and all the other stuff that a good marketing and sales function can enable in the business. And once we really focused on making sure our CRM was the right one for us, that we invested the correct amount of time and money into it, we ended up starting to get answers to really fundamental questions that started allowing us to scale. And so that looks like knowing where our best, highest quality and highest converting leads came from, knowing which marketing channels were contributing to the customer journey in a significant way. And before we were just kind of operating in the dark, taking guesses at what was working and hoping for the best. And so even when it comes to the clients that we work with for the manufacturing industry, it's the same fundamental questions that go unanswered with their current CRM or current way of tracking their customers and prospects, and implementing these systems and making sure all the data is flowing through is getting them answers to these questions and finally allowing them to increase their efficiency in their marketing and sales efforts so that they see the growth that they're expecting from a revenue side without having exploding operational costs from additional headcount, from errors that were made in the sales and marketing process with promises that just can't be fulfilled and everything like that. Now, with all this being said, there are so many CRMs to choose from. There's a lot of considerations when thinking about a modern CRM platform. And obviously, since it's not cheap, it's not fast to get a complex system implemented and integrated with all of your other tools. It's a whole topic in itself to dig into each CRM and what it offers compared to another. And so we're going to do that on the next episode of this podcast. But before we sign off, I'm going to give you 4 steps that you can take to identify whether or not a modern CRM is worth looking into and worth investing in. Number 1, if you could just identify if not having a modern CRM with the features and functionality that I talked about is hurting your growth, use those trigger points that I talked about earlier in the episode to see if there's a possibility that you're dropping leads between marketing and sales, that you're not understanding where your investments are going to in the marketing and sales department and what the return is on those. If you can look into that, you're going to see right away if there's a gap and if it makes sense to look into other systems that are going to help you fill those gaps and identify key metrics that you can drive your business off of. Number 2, if you figure out that a modern CRM makes sense for your business, that you're experiencing those problems, research the CRM providers that are out there. I would always recommend start with Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, and then Odoo as well in the manufacturing industry. There are tons of CRMs out there, but the reason why I mention those is because they've been in those industries for a while. They integrate with other tools really well. And then there's also a good chance that you're using one of those products already. So especially when it comes to Salesforce and Odoo, there's a chance that you're using ERP components or service components of those platforms. And so when you can integrate everything into one, it can be a lot less of overhead for the company. And so it can make sense in that situation. If you're looking for a newer platform that has all the bells and whistles. Pricing really makes sense, especially for companies that are up to 250, 300 employees. I would strongly recommend HubSpot. We're biased because we're HubSpot partners, but we see tons and tons of new features pouring out of HubSpot every month that just solve the most critical business problems for pretty much every team across the organization. So would strongly recommend looking into those. Number 3, sign up for the free trials for all of these CRMs. There's no harm in poking around in these tools, watching a few demos and a few walkthroughs, and just getting an idea of what the platform feels like, what features it offers, and whether or not you're going to want to take the next step looking into those platforms. And so number 4 is more of something that you do after you decide on the platform, which is hire a third-party expert, consultant, whatever it may be, to implement the platform for you. If you're not going to hire in-house to do that, then you 100% should go with a third party who does this for a living. These systems are complex. There's a lot of things to consider. And setting it up, you'll want someone who's been through those reps before and who knows exactly the ins and outs of the tools, what the downsides are. They should mention downsides if you talk to them about it. If they don't, then that's a red flag. But yeah, make sure you bring on a third-party expert for that. Once you get it up and running, there's a really good chance that you can train an internal employee to maintain that instance, or you can find third-party support that's going to fit your business as well. So that's the 4th step. So 1, identify if not having a modern CRM is hurting your growth. Number 2, research your CRM providers. 3, sign up for a free trial. And then 4, hire a third party to implement and develop that CRM and integrate it with all your other tools. So that's it for this podcast. We went over a little bit, that's it for this podcast episode. We went over what a modern CRM is and why you would want to use it in your manufacturing business. Now, if you could do one last thing before I sign off, make sure to sign up or subscribe for the podcast on whatever platform you use. We're just starting out here, so I'd greatly appreciate any support that you could show for the podcast. I'm Dan Saavedra, the founder of MergerData.com, and this was episode 7 of the TechOps Podcast. Next week, we're going to be diving into a few of the CRM platforms that are available in the different feature sets so that you can have a more informed decision if you do decide to look into modern CRMs. Now, if you do have any immediate questions around CRMs or around how technology fits into your organization, make sure to go to mergerdata.com and book a strategy call where one of our experts and even myself will be happy to jump on a call and talk about some of the challenges that you're facing. Thanks for listening.